So, welcome to the fourth week of our course, Buddhist meditation, going deep, going further, going deeper. And the theme for today's course is spiritual receptivity. To give a very brief resume of what we've already looked at, we've looked at the meditation practice, the mindfulness of the body, to develop an open, warm, and intimate relationship, a more open, intimate and warm relationship to our body. And then the mindfulness of breathing, bringing the disparate, though different, the various disparate energies together, our different cells together into a whole. And the meditation practice, the metta bhavana, developing positive emotion and positive intention and expanding them out further and further to more and more people. So on the basis of these practices, we'll begin to look at spiritual receptivity. So our theme today is spiritual receptivity, but also formless meditation and just sitting. But to explain the context of why we're looking at these themes now, I'd like to give a little history of the development of our movement, Triratna. The story starts with Sangharakshita, our founder, and a lecture that he gave in the late 70s called A System of Meditation. It had 5 stages, 5 progressive stages of what Sangharakshita himself called, could only be loosely considered a system. And we'll look at a quality to be developed in each of the stages, and the meditation practice we use to develop that quality. The first stage was integration, psychic integration, and the practice for developing it, of course, was the mindfulness of breathing. The second stage was positive emotion, and the practice for that was the metta bhavana. The third stage was spiritual death, which of course doesn't mean literal death. And the practice for developing that was the recollection of the 6 elements. The fourth stage was spiritual rebirth. And the practice here was the visualization and mantra recitation of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And lastly, there was the quality of receptivity and the practice of just sitting. Although Bhante, Sangharakshita, just talked about just sitting here. So the first 2 of these practices you know well, so there's no need to say anything more about them. The third, the recollection of the 6 elements. What are the 6 elements? Well, they're earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness. And we reflect that even though these elements are found in us, they are borrowed. We took them up on birth, and we'll have to give them back. We stop identifying with them, and that way we can give up attachment to them, or loosen our attachment to them. Fourthly, the visualization of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and mantra recitation. In this practice, the particular Buddha or Bodhisattva represented an aspect of the enlightened mind, and by reflecting on them, on their nature, we try to develop that aspect of the enlightened mind in us. And lastly, there was just sitting. Although this is no longer progressive, it's not the last in the series. And there's one more difference. The others, the first four, are all active. Mindfulness of breathing, metta bhavana, 6 elements, visualization. We're trying to do something. But just sitting is receptive in character. Bhante Sangharakshita stressed that both these qualities, being active and being receptive, were important in our meditation practice. And he went on so far as to say that we should alternate an active practice, then a receptive practice, an active practice, receptive, active, receptive. Only, over time, the order kind of forgot. And this meant in practice, in effect, the order focused only on active practices, not the receptive. So what happened? A one-sided approach developed, which led to people having a dry experience of meditation, an absence of emotion. And what happened then? Well, people started to just sit in meditation, to balance up, something relaxed. And people started noticing that they were having deeper experiences in meditation. Retreats started where the main theme was just sitting. Some people started to think that the active approach itself was wrong. And this led to a crisis in teaching. And from the discussions that arose from this crisis, there emerged 3 main areas, which we'll look at now. The first was receptivity, as an approach to spiritual life. The second was formless meditation. And the third was just sitting, but recognizing that it's not a meditation practice, it's not a practice. So let's have a look at all of these in a little more detail. So let's look at spiritual receptivity. Receptivity is vital for spiritual progress. Making an effort of will, controlling ourselves, doing a technique, carefully following instructions, are important but not enough. Brief, an intellectual approach, a mind-only approach, a conscious approach to teachings is not enough. We need to be receptive as well to our experience, to ourselves, which includes deeper energies, emotions, a dormant imagination, a creativity and intuition. So more than just our conscious mind, the bits of ourselves kind of hanging around on the periphery of consciousness. And these deeper energies and emotions can be found in great works of art, poetry and music. They can find expression in myths and fables, although they don't necessarily correspond with the Dharma, these myths and fables. They can be found in brief and creative activity, and both active and receptive approaches are needed. So the question arises, how to develop our receptive side? It requires a different approach to developing our active side, our active engagement in practice. Developing our creative side doesn't have a simple answer to the question, well, what do we do? It requires a different, more receptive, intuitive, emotional, creative approach. So far, so good. And even though some, returning to our history of Triratna, were having deeper meditative experiences, doing just sitting, Manti was concerned. He was concerned that some people, at least, would cease to make an effort. Manti was an extremely energetic man, mentally at least, if not physically. He was a prolific author, poet, lecturer, and leader of seminars. And he didn't want people to simply drift in meditation. And with his high standards, he saw how people had a tendency simply to drift, use any excuse not to really practice. So out of people's deeper experiences in meditation and discussions with Bhante, arose a new kind of meditation, which was called Formless meditation, which we'll have a look at now, and even have the chance to practice. So, formless meditation. What are we doing here? What is this practice? What does it mean, formless meditation? Well, we are making an effort in meditation. We are trying to be more aware, but without a predetermined object of meditation. What do we mean by an object of meditation? Well, examples we know are the different parts of our body, our breath, our emotion of metta. So instead of focusing on these objects, we simply sit and try to be aware of what happens. It doesn't mean, of course, that we try to stop being aware of the body and the breath and so on. We're open to whatever is there, whatever dimension of our experience we become aware of. It might be something external, like sounds, or a sense of space, or time, or atmospheres. It might be internal, something physical, emotional, mental, or imaginal, including memories and thoughts and images. It can be anything, external or internal. Or we can try to be aware of all these different dimensions at the same time. Our experience can be very broad or very specific. The important thing here is the goal isn't to be doing a particular technique or following instructions. It doesn't mean asking questions like, oh, can I be aware of that? Is that okay? Or what should I do if this happens? The goal is just being aware, having an integrated experience of ourselves. An experience of ourselves even that goes beyond ourselves. Experiencing the parts of ourselves or the parts of our experience which we are happy to consider ourselves, and the parts that we'd rather not consider ourselves, which can lead to a rich emotional experience, something much broader and deeper than just dry concentration. We might just find ourselves listening to an ordinary sound, like cars passing in a road outside, and find that it becomes increasingly interesting, even pleasurable, fascinating. Might lead us to feel we've never really heard what a car passing in a road sounds like. And the world can start to seem a new place, a place we've never really noticed before. Or we might find anger arising, And we don't try to control ourselves, we just let it be there. We can have an attitude of, oh, this is really interesting. I'm angry. What exactly am I experiencing? What does it feel like, really? Where exactly do I feel it? Where in the body do I feel it? What sensations in the body are there? And is it really bad? Is it really as bad as I might think it is? Is there anything useful in it? Anything good? Mixed in with what isn't good? Why did it come up? So in these and other ways we can investigate our experience. For one more idea before we do the practice, we're sitting maybe, in one moment we're just aware, say, of a part of our body. We're aware of our legs. And the next moment we find that we're remembering something that happened 10, 20 or 30 years ago. So why did we go from one experience to the other? Feeling our legs to a memory from a long time ago. Why did that particular memory come up now? We've got so many memories to choose from. Why was it that one? Can you notice the transition from one state to another, from the awareness of the body to a memory? How did the change take place? So another idea of what to do when we're doing this formless meditation practice. Okay, so let's give it a go. I'll ring a bell at the beginning and the end. If you'd like to meditate longer, of course, you can stop the recording and come back to the recording when you want to finish. Just putting a bolster behind me to help me keep good posture. So closing your eyes when you're ready. And to begin with, listening to the sounds around you. And bringing your attention to your body. As we begin, a 10-minute period of formless meditation, where the instructions stop. Now, bringing your attention back to your body and listening to all the sounds around you. When you feel ready, slowly and gently opening your eyes. So that was the formless meditation. Questions for you? We're very happy to hear your answers, to read your answers in our chat group. How was it for you? What happened? Was it different from your usual experience of meditation? Was there anything you found it particularly easy to give your attention to? Was there anything you resisted? Was there anything you experienced in a new kind of way? So yes, that's our first taste of formless meditation. So now we can go on to just sitting. This is something different. The difference, of course, being that when we just sit, we're not making an effort to be aware. As Bhante said once about the nature of just sitting, when we just sit, well, we just sit. So we're not trying to do anything. Bhante, in fact, Bhante Sangharakshita, didn't want to call it a practice. Because when we're doing a practice, we are trying to do something, we're practicing something. In fact, he recommended only doing just sitting at 3 times. Firstly, we can do it at the start of a meditation, when we're feeling particularly restless. Might help us calm down. Secondly, at the end of meditation, what we've already looked at, what can be called sitting on. And some people do find that sitting on gives them the deepest, most pleasurable experiences around meditation. And thirdly, on retreat, when we're already doing a lot of meditation, when there's a meditative, concentrated atmosphere, that's a good time to do just sitting. Okay, so let's give this one a go as well. It's always useful to bear in mind our intention when meditating. And our intention is simply to do nothing, to simply just sit in good posture. So for 7 minutes this time. Just sitting. So when you're ready, slowly and gently opening your eyes to finish the practice. So, what happened here? Which do you prefer? Formless meditation or just sitting? And why? Did you notice the difference between them? And what were these differences? And which do you prefer? An active or a receptive approach to practice? And so, we've almost come to the end. Just to give you a summary of this video lecture, we focused today on the receptive element in meditation, doing formless meditation and just sitting. These approaches are integral in the practices that we've already learned, but today we've given particular attention to them. We've given them a central place to develop our approach to meditating in this way. And all of this has been said in the context of how they emerged in the history of our Triratna Buddhist Community. So there's only one more thing left to do, and that's to look at what we can do in the week ahead with these practices and non-practices. How do we take these teachings into everyday life? Well, to begin with, we can simply decide to practice formless meditation, at least 20 minutes every day. Make that our meditation practice for this week. And maybe allow ourselves a bit of time to just sit on at the end of each meditation. Allow ourselves to sit on, in fact, at the end of any meditation practice we do. And please do tell us about it, how it's going in our group chat. Well, as well as that, we can try to do nothing. Simply do nothing. Once a day, for 15 minutes, say. Get a cup of tea, maybe. Find somewhere nice to sit, somewhere comfortable, and simply do nothing. Stop being useful, stop being active, and experience ourselves being delightfully useless. It's not always easy for us to constantly being active, but it's a very good practice for developing receptivity. And a question for you, how did you find this? And did you feel any resistance to it? And lastly, we can spend 10 minutes each day just looking at something. It can be anything. It certainly doesn't have to be something interesting. We could look at the clouds in the sky. We could look at a tree, a picture on the wall, or just the wall. We can just take some time to be with it, whatever we're looking at, to become more aware of it, really aware of it, to become one with it even. And the question for us is, do we notice a change in relationship with the object after spending this time looking at it? And if so, can you describe this change? I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say. So the three ways we can take these teachings into everyday life: practicing formless meditation and sitting on, doing nothing, and just spending time looking at something. Ways that we can consciously develop spiritual receptivity in our lives and in our meditation practice. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your receptivity.